Sasquatch, Ghost, Dogman, aliens, demons, shadow people, skinwalkers, even the Fae. Our universe is vast, dark, and wrought with infinite unexplained phenomena. We have tasked ourselves with assisting humanity in finding the keys to unlock the mysteries that abound in and around our world. What we intend to reveal behind the curtain of darkness may very well invoke those fears long tucked away in our memories. We will meet that fear head on as we strive to shine the light of understanding on these phenomena. The goal is to arm you with the power of knowledge to confront and even combat these entities. We welcome you to join us on our quest. We are Midwest Night Watchers.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Welcome, everyone.
Tonight on Piercing the Veil, we're going to be talking about vibrations and frequencies with Robert Bauer. And Robert Bauer has been on a panel show with Mr. B's Truth Seekers. That's how I met him. And so go check out Mr. B's Truth Seekers, if you will, and you'll check out all the panel shows that Robert and all the Mr. B's friends have been on, including me and Jim Goodall and Solar B and Doc Hollywood. And so it's just a great show to go check him out. And we'll bring Robert up here in a minute and get started. But first, I want to say hi to everybody in chat. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it so much. And if you get a chance, go out and check everybody's websites or YouTubes in chat. You know, you got the Dogman UK, and we just got all kinds of friends out there. Dennis Carroll on Hunting the Shadows. We got Bigfoot Michigan Rob on Texas Front Porch. We got Texas Show. We got Blondes and Booze that support us, and Jessica the Cryptid Huntress. She has her own show, and who are some of the other ones?
Long Island Bigfoot. We got Moggs with Susie or Stevie B.
And speaking of Susie B has her own channel, so go check out Susie B on YouTube. She's doing some nice chats at night with fires and getting to know everybody and telling some stories, and
that's been fun.
And Donnie Cho Says Stuff. He's also associated with Texas Front Porch, and Danielle Diva has a show on Texas Front Porch. So make sure you check out all those fine people. And I'm sure I'm leaving people out because we have so many friends and so many different things. And hopefully Robert comes on. I don't see
Oh, did he disappear?
I don't see him on there no more.
Uh-oh.
Well, he'll be on here in a minute or two. I don't know what happened, or maybe I hit the wrong. Oh, there he is. There you are.
There he is.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for asking. I don't get out much, and so this is a great opportunity for me.
I was trying to tell everybody in the beginning how we first met on Terry's Mr. B's Truth Seekers panel show. He just invited me on, and that was my first experience with all you folks.
Yeah, it was a great one. Mr. B has a way of pulling together some very interesting characters.
Yeah. Interesting shows.
Well, before we get started, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I already said your name and stuff, but you can go ahead and repeat that and your website and stuff and all the information that you're going to be sharing with us tonight.
Yeah, so we'll get all the commercial, go tap that, subscribe here, like that stuff. So you can find me and my stuff at robertbauer.com. So all the different work that I do, who I am, samples of music, meditations, podcasts, Informatica, which we'll be talking about tonight, is up there as well. So that, and then YouTube, Facebook, and all the normal ones. But you can find whatever my latest stuff is at robertbauer.com.
All right. So like I said, we started the show. We're going to talk about frequencies and vibrations. And I know you got a little slideshow possibly for us to see while you're talking. And we can go ahead and just get right into it, unless you have an introduction that you want to talk about frequencies or.
Well, I think it's, as I was saying before we went live, when I look at something, I try to find the nut of the nugget, if you will. What is the core of what it is that I'm trying to explore and learn about? So first principles thinking is one of the key things in the way that I try to approach the reality that we inhabit. During the last 10 years in particular, a lot of my worldview about science and philosophy, theologies, belief systems, had gone through a fair amount of exploration all over the place. I did have a music ministry back in the early 80s, Christian music ministry, and had a couple of bands, and we would play rest homes and prisons and youth authorities and do free concerts and all of that. And it was Pentecostal, so it was of the more firm side of the Christian belief systems. But from that point forward, I tried to explore as many different systems that explained reality as possible, always looking for the resonance of something that had a definition that was close to my experience. Because at the end of the day, the only thing we all have is whatever it is that we resonate with. What vibration? What's the vibratory nature of the experience we're having? And how do we either resonate with it and find harmony, or we find discord and the kinds of frequency, the kinds of energies that are frequencies and therefore vibrations of what we experience. So that's a long way of going around saying, okay, I looked at it as much as I could find, and I started to see a pattern, and I started to see patterns in the way that the patterns manifest themselves in reality. So I got a download one night, and it came to me as this term Informatica. And I said, oh, what the hell is that? And for the next 3 hours, I was laying in bed in the wee hours and writing down everything that I could that was coming through this download of just, here's what it is. It's information. Information is everything. Even in whether you're looking at it from a metaphysics perspective, or if you're looking at it from a traditional physics perspective, which I think is a quick side note that we'll get into because it explains more of this vibration and frequency theory that I have. And that is, our physics are going to change from the limitations that they are now into something that I'm calling frequency physics. So it's the idea of looking at everything from a frequency perspective and understanding that from there, the true nature of reality manifests. And that's when you're experiencing it in its most pure form. So Informatica is the metrics and magic in the matrix of the mind. And I've chosen those words very specifically because the metrics are the information. They are the containers of whatever it is that delineates, gives distinction and differentiation to whatever our experience is, whether it's metaphysical or physical or both. So I realized that when I saw that there was essentially patterns of definitive habits and natures of that I wanted to put some kind of context around. How do you put together in words and symbols that which explains reality? And we've seen this through all of the ancient belief systems, the mystery schools, the secret societies, all of the different ways in which information about our reality has been defined and then kind of managed and helped and protected. Because what we're seeing now in the society of the global fabric of interaction is a bunch of forced conflict, intended chaos, where the energies and frequencies of chaos and discord and disruption have been grabbed and amplified, and they've been now I've been saying for the last couple of years, it's like somebody went in the kitchen and turned all the burners on the stove on high, turned the oven on high. They got all the pots boiling, smoke going everywhere. And that's by design with a fair amount of incompetence. I mean, it's so absurd now. It's to the point that even the smallest modicum of common sense is getting twinked. It's going, wait a minute, what's this? Wait a minute. I never used to pay attention to this shit, but this shit is just, what is that? That's not what I thought it was or knew it was or have known it as. You're telling me it's what? So there's a huge amount of extracurricular activity and effort put into stirring up the vibrations and frequencies that keep chaos and discord on the front burner.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, when I think of vibrations and frequencies, and I kind of told you this, I talk about how it affects our body or how we try to raise our consciousness and put the vibrations out or the frequencies flowing out through the universe. But as I'm sitting here thinking, listening to you, we talk about atoms and molecules, how every substance is made of this, and they're all vibrating and have their own frequencies. So I don't mean to jump ahead if that's in your...
No, that's your perfect segue, because if we think about what is the nature of reality, the one thing that we all have in common and experience yet can't explain is consciousness. It is, if without consciousness there is no reality. So why don't we? It's probably easy at this point to do a few slides, because it'll give a perspective of what this actually looks like visually.
Okay.
See if I can do this without making a mistake.
Well, if you disappear, we'll just use your doppelganger over in the corner.
Okay. And please, at any point, if I'm clearly bouncing off the guardrails or something doesn't make any sense whatsoever, jump in, tell me.
Okay.
Let's, because like I said, I don't get out much, so getting this out is something that I haven't done a lot of, and it'll be great to get somebody else's feedback besides my own.
Anyone in chat has a question along the way, just put them in capital letters and Gil will be able to save them. And we'll try to answer them.
Let's see here. Well, hopefully that's working.
Yep.
Okay, so this could go on for a very long time. So I'm going to go to just different sections that are relevant to our discussion, because it's otherwise we'll all be here longer than we want.
That's fine. We'll have a 5-hour show tonight, folks. Pop quiz at the end of the show.
Yeah, there will be a test. Okay, so Informatica is the metrics in the matrix, the numbers in the framework of reality. Let's see here. So when the term hit me, I went, okay, what is that? I haven't heard that before. What does it mean? And there really isn't a definition. There's only one company that's a tech company that actually calls themselves Informatica. But I said, at the end of the day, everything that you experience has some delineation to it. It's got distinction. It's different than everything else. And we learn, I'll skip ahead here. The way that our minds learn and we seem to gain experience and knowledge, understanding, and wisdom about something is through patterns. We are pattern recognition. We naturally see patterns, and that is the way in which we learn, is that association. So, but that's skipping ahead. Informatica is both a verb and a noun. It's a noun in that it is the data set, Informatica. It is a verb in that it is what happens to information. It becomes Informatica. So being able to think about it from a dualistic yet opposite perspective is really important to the entire concept.
So Affirmatica is a subject or a noun, but it also has a subcategory that is also Informatica.
It's also an action.
An action.
Because the thing about consciousness is that the nature and habit of consciousness seem to be in a constant motion. That motion seems to be constantly, from our perspective, moving forward, whether it's looping or cyclicking or straight lining or whatever it's doing. There's this motion, and it's in constant motion. The habit nature of that motion is to create. It's everything. There's the whole idea that matter and energy can neither be created or destroyed, which is one of the fundamentals of physics, is completely wrong, because all observations are that the universe is expanding, we're expanding, Earth's expanding, solar. I mean, every telemetry, every set of metrics that we have devised, tools, techniques, and toys to go capture and measure that which we either don't know or think we know or want to know, has been phenomenal. We'll see that when we get into some of the examples of frequencies in physics in the frequency physics section. But so Informatica is the information in reality. It's the metrics, the things that we measure, how we measure, whatever those are. Doesn't have to be math. It has characteristics. So all of that is something that happens constantly in our reality. So what is the nature and characteristic of it? So the nature and habits of consciousness are pretty clear, in my opinion. And they're behavioral. They are very much in the sense of evolving, always changing. So there's a constant creation going on. That constant creation is expressed through frequencies of what is energy of consciousness. So consciousness, in this constant motion and movement forward, or movement, seems to be creating and making more as it motions. As it's in motion, it continues to create. That constant creation is made through energy. Energy is what that motion is. And energy is a set of frequencies that manifest into the materium and the ethereum. So there's constant creation. It manifests through energy frequencies. It's always in motion, cycles within cycles that create patterns that result in novelty or new or more.
So are you
So-
talking like the creation of the universe, or are we talking, or can we apply that to like music, strumming a guitar, the action and the vibration and the waves and
Yes.
all of the above? Or
Yes, you're exactly right. So to me, the reason for existence is the nature of this consciousness, whatever this consciousness is. It's not a theology. It's not a science as we understand it. It's not a belief system or any of that. It is simply the nature of reality. There is no predisposition of origin or source other than it is. Because the one thing that we all experience is this common band of reality. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to interact. So there's a consciousness, the frequency band that we all kind of play in. But there's all kinds of frequencies above, below, within, and out around that are their own frequencies and vibrations that all are also habits and nature of the consciousness, the characteristics of consciousness. So, does that make sense?
yep.
So, I'll hit just a couple of these quotes. This is one of my favorite ones by Feynman. I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, when you think about it, questions are the most important thing that we all can actively participate in. If you're not questioning stuff, then you're probably not paying attention or you're passed out on the couch.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that in science now, where they have to question their own theories and their own formulas for what they're making up for what already exists. But we have new stuff existing that they're like, oh, well, this doesn't really fit the box.
Well, that's the great thing about chasing when you get math models, men and machines all dialed in to make to go find what you're looking for. We're pretty good at that. We can go find what we're looking for, and then if we're paying attention, or more importantly, if we are intending to find other than what we are looking for, then you start to find stuff. I mean, the whole the James Webb Space Telescope that's been up there for about a year now, and the images that it's and Informatica that it is returning has already pushed back the Big Bang to 26 billion years. So clearly that number has to be reviewed. What was the formula that you used to arrive at that number? And that's one of the things that's the most important to me is when I see the answers that are being given to certain questions, I look at those answers and go, well, how the hell did you come up with that? I'd like to see the question you used to arrive at that answer, because I don't understand how you could get that answer. Clearly there was something amiss in the process of, your formula and your calcs and everything else. So that is just, in my opinion, you could easily say long overdue because of the amount of suffering that most of us have had to go through in putting up with this nonsense. But it is the time for, it's a 21st century renaissance of knowledge. And one of the last shows I did on the Nexus was the knowledge apocalypse, the end of the curated narrative. And that was back at the end of 2019. Because what I have seen, and it's accelerating massively right now, is that the amount of information that we've been told is what it is it's over 60, close to 70% of it is bullshit. It's incomplete at best, bullshit at worst. And everything, it doesn't matter. Pick the institutional, the financial, the health system, education, academia, media, all of it. it's all
Right.
broken. So it's all, in addition to that, it's all broken in a way that it can't be fixed. It has to be replaced. It's not something that the infrastructure, the models, the customs, the cultures, the regulations, and whatever that went into creating the system that is now are all broke. They're no longer valid for a variety of reasons. So that, to me, is a huge frequency change. The vibration that's coming in, that's fueling the demise of the old and the rise of the new, is just extremely powerful and wonderful, in my opinion. I'm enjoying the shit out of it.
Mhm.
And I can't wait for it to unfold, because we still got crap to go through. It's not the main
Right.
crap now, but there's another side that's not too far down the road that's going to be completely different. And that difference is going to make it'll be transformative for humanity, in my opinion. And there's a whole bunch of aspects to that, from terrestrial to celestial, and philosophical to scientific and philosophical. So anyway, the idea of vibration and frequencies is what we're seeing happening. And we're seeing it on both a macro and a micro level, where there's a sense that the change is afoot, and trying to navigate and swim through it is kind of wonky. It's not easy to do, because there's stuff coming at you from all over, from places you didn't know had stuff to throw at you. And you're having to bob and weave and dance and parry and manage your navigation through the tsunami of caca, because it's like, it's deep and it's coming fast and from all directions. But the change that we're about to see is going to be worth this particular ride, in my opinion.
Just causes more questions and more questions, and the more you seek, the more questions you come up with.
And that is, as I was saying, one of the most important things that I think anybody can do is make sure you're asking questions. And if you're not asking
Mhm.
questions, ask yourself why you're not asking any questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
mean, I was just going to say, yeah, because I mean, to your point, I mean, I believe our Earth is changing
Mhm.
along with our societal basis, and whether it's religion and social and political, it's just all changing nonstop. Every day, it seems like something different is changing. Whether it's our weather, our atmosphere, or I mean, a lot of times it's hard for me to even recognize the society we're living in now from when I grew up.
us boomers are having some serious nostalgic moments now. I mean, I'm having them with more frequency than I've had in a long time, and it's just to go there for a minute, and go, oh yeah, that's right, it was like that, yeah. So go and pick up that vibration of that memory. That is that's a perfect example, and I'll just throw this in one little side nugget. So there's all this debate and learned discussion about time travel, and is it possible? Are there examples? Or can it happen in the quantum space, and all the different aspects of time travel? Well, I think we all experience time travel, and that's what memories are, number one. But if you wanted to ever have a transportive experience, put on music you listened to as a kid, and tell me you don't go right back to where you were listening to that.
Yep.
Mhm.
We talked about that not too long ago on a show.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
it's
Christmas music.
yeah. So
Well,
to me,
I'll just tell the story real quick before you finish, and it's right
yeah.
along your storyline. Back in 1978, I was getting ready to go into high school. I'm in between, and a friend of mine just bought a brand new Cutlass, and we would cruise around at night, doing normal teenager stuff, but just mainly just cruising, listening to music and stuff. And when I hear "Life's Been Good" by Joe Walsh, that just brings me right back. I can see the interior of that car, feel the music that we played. I can smell, the cigarettes that we were smoking or whatever at the time. And I mean, it just brings me right back to that presence and moment. So talking about time travel, it happens all the time.
That's just what I'm saying. Let's see. We'll spend a minute on this. As I was saying earlier, I was going through my reality search of looking for all the different belief systems and theologies and sciences and philosophies that explain reality, and I was trying them on. How does that fit? And the one that I found the most resonance and ease with is Taoism. And I learned was a shiatsu practitioner. So the mother of my children and I met. We were at shiatsu school, and we were partners, so we had to work on each other's bodies. Next thing you know, we were married and had kids. Imagine that. But, shiatsu is Japanese for acupressure, so it's the same meridians that traditional Chinese medicine uses, but no needles. And that was really important to me because I just, needles and me are just not friends at all. They win every time. But I also, then I got into Tai Chi and became an instructor. And that's when I started really trying to understand what Taoism and the I Ching is about. So in Taoist philosophy, the way that this Informatica, this consciousness, is explained is this: one's innate or fundamental being is ultimately the Tao, or Tao, expressing or manifesting itself as an embodied person. The innate nature is connected with one's heart mind. So, and that's one of the things of the opening lines in the Tao Te Ching is that which can describe the Tao is not the Tao, right? It's like God is this unintelligible entity that we can only use metaphor and analogies to describe. Our language, our concepts are inadequate to explain what this great intelligence is, this great consciousness, whatever this is. But the one thing is that this consciousness is, because that's what we all experience. So the Taoists are looking at it as the Tao manifests itself into being. So that's analogous to the energy nature of consciousness is in constant motion, creating and moving forward, and always creating new, always expanding. There's always more. That nature is how we manifest in those frequency sets. So we are individual, unique frequency stamps of consciousness. That's how we manifest. That's where all of this connection to the mind, to the one, to source, whatever definition people want to put on it. We are it. We are unique examples and expressions of it. But therefore, our consciousness, that's why we create. Now I'm starting to get into some of the mind stuff, but if that makes any sense, let me, excuse me. Buddhists, we are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. The that is, the idea of being in the presence of the state of being, which is constantly moving, constantly in motion itself, because if it's a unique expression of the source, which is consciousness, therefore it has its same characteristics. It is of that nature because those characteristics are a part of the energy frequencies that manifest the materium that we inhabit. The etherium is where that frequency band is, doesn't require the materium to exist, but part of the expressions of this energy set of frequencies and fields is this materium that we can then connect the energetic expression, the frequencies to. And that's how we become who we are. That's how we manifest into this. Now, whether there's, the whole idea of different iterations, it's usually referred to as reincarnation. I like the term iteration better. I think that once our stamp is created, once we are uniquely get our signature and become our unique identity, from that point forward, it's just a constant motion and play within however those frequencies manifest. Whether you want to call them multiverses, omniverses, different timelines, all these different ways in which we think this invisible realm actually manifests, there's nothing more important than the individual's own experience and expression of it. If you experience something that you can't explain, and neither can anyone else, doesn't mean you didn't experience it. It doesn't mean that it's not there. It doesn't mean anything other than it's now a data set that you have in your bag of experience that you go, what happened there? What pattern recognition can I have any kind of analogies or metaphorical connections with, or mappings to?
I have a question. I don't know if it's going to fit your narrative or not. When you're saying we're time stamped, and then we have our flow of our life, our individual little moments throughout this timeline.
Yep.
Is the music, is the art, is everything that we become creative in or express ourselves, is that already flowing through our universe and we're perceiving it, picking it up to make our own individual characteristics, and or am I seeing it wrong?
You are spot on. So this is again from my perspective. So the things that are in creation that become something because of this nature and habit of consciousness being in constant motion of creation, apparently seeking novelty or having a focus on novelty, on new, because it's always something new that seems to be being created. If that energy is out there, and in fact, let me say it this way: the frequencies for creation are always happening as different frequency sets have their own cycles, and they move along and they interact, and they have cycles within cycles, and there's new ones that show up and different intensities and all the different attributes of the way frequencies actually function, the way energy functions. Then the manifestation of some art is available, but it takes an intent, a captured intent and focus to go manifest it and bring it into its next phase. So I don't know if that makes sense, but the idea is that
like me or Jane or you playing a guitar, the notes and frequencies are already there, and we absorb it, and our mind manifests the song. That's how you take so many notes that's available on a guitar and make all these thousands and millions of different songs and variations.
Mm-hmm. So I think that that creation is always available, but I also think that it's there to be had, if you will. And very poor way of saying that.
Well, I got an example with me coming up with rhythms and like little songs with all these variety of instruments that I use. A lot of time that rhythm is in my head. That's one reason why I can't sleep at night, because you hear the music and you hear the rhythm, and it's like I'm getting that download of that rhythm and then I'm putting it to practice. So
Mhm.
like you're saying, it's out there, I'm picking it up, and then I'm using my instruments to make the video. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Well, yeah, so it just the simple act of so you said that you hear and you feel the rhythm, right? In your
Yeah,
sleep. So to me, that's a
downloads.
well, it's a connection at a minimum.
Yeah.
So I like to use savants as one of the great examples of the power of this thing called mind that nobody's got an explanation for. When you have people with severe handicaps that have some incredible genius in some field, math, art, music, uh,
Mhm.
whatever, yet they have the rest of their social capabilities are just they're disabled, so they can't function except for in this one space that they are supremely awesome at. And there's several examples where there was one time of sitting down and finding out that there's this thing called a piano, and in 10 minutes was playing Rachmaninoff something. So where is that information is my question. How can, first of all, I think that the disabilities really keep any additional inhibitions from the natural expression of consciousness and energy. That all that stuff gets inhibited because all this material stuff and all the mental stuff and the filters and the frames and the parasites and all the crap that gets shoved into our minds, it has suppressed more natural uh, characteristics in nature of our consciousness, which is constant creation. So these savants, these people that have these incredible skill sets, are tapped in. Number one, if there is a gateway for that information, theirs is not blocked,
Mhm.
right? It's
Right.
like, how did you get that knowledge and that physical resonance capability instantly? Where did that come from? So to me, that goes to your question, Gerald, about the art and creating it. I think I know most of the music that I have created, especially there have been some amazing, uh, just deep personal, visceral, and spiritual intensity. So that resonance with music. In fact, I've always felt that way. I've said if I wasn't a human being, I'd be a musical note looking for a tune to play on, because music is just that intense to me. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that it really is for just about everybody. And there's just in different degrees and different resonances, different timbres and tempos and harmony structures and movement. I mean, uh, the power of music and sound. Um, Sound is actually what I think we're going to see as one of the most profound and effective health treatments and therapies in the future.
I
Um,
agree.
we're going to see more and more, um, and there's a whole bunch of them out there now, but we're going to see more and more results of people using sound therapy, and the results are going to blow people away. Same thing with psychedelics, psilocybin, DMT, MDMA, all these different psychotropic substances seem to have a really profound biochemical reaction that affects our energetic mental state. And it's been known for a long time. It's finally starting to get the cred that it deserves. But just like this recent rope-a-dope of the pharmaceuticals during this pandemic, about therapies, about natural therapeutics, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, D, people just being told to go focus on getting your immune system right. There was
Right.
none of that. It was like, well, let's go help your already screwed up immune system because we've given you all this crazy stuff for far too long and you've believed it. Now your entire system is fallen apart. So here's
Right.
some more masks for all of those symptoms that we gave you. Thank you very much. You're welcome. I mean, it's terrible.
Mhm.
Let's see. Let's go down to so you're familiar with Aldous Huxley?
Yes, I mean I've heard it, but I don't think I've ever studied or looked into it very deep.
He's an author. I think his was Brave New World.
Yeah, I've heard of the Brave New World.
So he's a more modern mystery school theologian, philosopher kind of guy. But he said some very interesting things, which I think, and this is what I found in my search, looking for a definition, is that everybody had a piece of something. Everybody had, yep, you're kind of, yeah, I can relate with that, but what was that over there? I don't know about that. And I think that's one of the most important things people need to do is to make sure that you're vetting the shit that you're going through. I mean, or that you're selecting from. What are your choices? So, sorry for that little squirrel. So, so Huxley had a very interesting perspective on consciousness and reality, which I think is worth considering. So he says space, time, and mind emerge or emanate and or manifest from one mind. Consciousness is fundamental. Will is the mind manipulating reality. So going back to your question on creativity, Gerald. So will is what's creating or manifesting the art that you are creating. Does that make sense, Jane, to you?
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of will and the whole discussion of free will, which has got a whole bunch of debates and more learned discussions on, is free will, or does it exist or not? And to
Right.
me, I can see arguments on both sides, but I have to go on my experience and what I'm seeing is what would be considered free will. And that is the continuous creation of motion, of the continuous motion of creation that consciousness does. So there's always something new. So if its habit and nature is to always move, always continue in motion, then the new stuff's going to be created. Well, what are you doing in that? What's your experience of when that happens? Well, I mean, everything around me, I'm having a conscious experience with. I'm having a sentience of. I'm able to have a connection of a separation of myself and that as two separate things, and I can engage with it. And that's just the fundamental way in which our minds function. Wrapped around all that base functionality is a whole bunch of shit that we've either been piled on us, shoved down us, shoved up us, or we've drenched ourselves in without anybody's help. So all of that has to be looked at as its own set of information of shit that people have put on you that you're using as a filter to engage with reality. So you end up with having an observational neutrality of your engagement with reality.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it was easy for me to say.
Well, it just takes me back to your Savant. They have that stream, that one stream, whether it's music, art, math, or whatever, that they just see so clearly and focus, and everything else is this noise on the outside. Where us, or me, a normal person, I have everything bombard me all at once, and I don't have that clarity that they have.
And so explain that. I mean, another is non-local consciousness, which is, clairvoyance, telepathy, all the different delineations that we have of that. But the bottom line is that they are all non-local. Psychokinesis doesn't matter. You're starting from a place that we perceive that is in our cranium, which it's not. We have our nervous system organ is housed there, and the interaction with our mind and how the interface between the electrical energies that are materium experience and the electrical energies that are our mind, our consciousness, there's that interface. And the two aren't dependent on one another. Well, the physical one's dependent on the mental one, because if that mental one's not there, then the physical one just doesn't function, right? So the idea of intent and focus is what divination is, as he mentions here. Divination is the mind that can know everything. So it's going outside of its knowledge stack and going out and looking and finding more informatica to bring into the knowledge stack.
So let me say this, and I don't know if I'm seeing this right, but so our mind is like a radio, and we have all these waves and information coming in, and it's up to us to fine tune it, to find what we're looking for, or what our love or our natural abilities will get us, whether it's art, math, science, whatever.
Yeah, and so the idea.
I don't know if I said that very clearly, or
Yeah, you did, and I'm trying to rephrase it the way saying the same thing, but the way I would say it, which is the ability to be aware of and acquire information is what our sentience is. We perceive and pick up information, we experience things, we have that knowledge, we think something, we have that experience, we imagine something, and that's a whole nother realm of consciousness that no one can explain, but everybody experiences, right?
yeah.
The fundamentals of the way that this consciousness works is what I've been trying to put together, and so I can just understand not only how the reality functions within the consciousness that I experience, but what are the unique characteristics about it? What are the interesting things, the curious things? What the hell is that thing? I mean, there's that, we all have that experience in some way, shape, or form every day. And if you're not, you're either medicated or you have some malfunctioning stuff.
Or you're a zombie.
That would, to me, there'd be a whole bunch of malfunction going on there. So let's see. So it's important to understand that we measure things. Information is information because there's been measurement applied to whatever that information is. I'll give this is kind of an example. back in the 50s and 60s, when they were transitioning the phone system from the patch cords to the digital or transistor and switches, in order for integration between the different systems around the world to occur, they were all on different languages, different operating systems, and all of that. So they had to agree to a set of information that they could all use and still keep their other shit, but give them the ability to integrate, because here's this, what they call a universal data packet, a UDP. And that universal data packet contained the instructions for the information from one foreign system to go through another one and for them to communicate. And then over time, they all got adopted, and we have what we have today. So that little UDP was key to unifying everything. You could say it was a unified field nugget. So the Informatica is that same concept. It's, what is this data set? What are the metrics? How do you measure this thing? From its shape, its color, its vibration, its weight, all the different things. There's all these different ways in which we put measurement around whatever the hell it is we're examining. So knowing the most fundamental components of what those characteristics are is the first place you have to start, because if you start outside of it, where there's already a whole bunch of definitions and things put onto it by others that may or may not be valid, you have to swim through all that crap to figure out which ones are valid that you can adopt into your experience of whatever that nugget is. So everything is information because it's got some kind of measurement to it. There's some kind of delineation numerically, mathematically. There's distinction in its formula. There's differentiation in that it has its own complete characteristics that are not unique, or not similar to another one at all. All of that are just they're experiences that are of information that we then use pattern recognition to try to learn from it, because we see things, we see the pattern in things, because that's the way that consciousness is. When it's constantly creating using energy and frequencies in cycles within cycles, then there are going to be patterns that will occur within those cycles. And that's just, the very top level. It's at the macro level. That's just its nature and its habit. All kinds of stuff flows out of it on the as it moves forward, as it manifests. So that is one of the most important parts of figuring out frequencies and vibrations, is understanding that there are metrics around them that define them. And the more you know about them, the more that you can take advantage of them. Yeah. We'll spend a minute.
A universal law that you apply to that matrix or metrics, or am I thinking of something totally different?
Nope, that's a great segue. So the term right now, we have these the study of measurement is essentially called metrology. So metrology is where shit's measured and the records are kept about the measurements. So you have all these things like the constants are kept in this book of constants, I think is what they call it, actually. So there's the constants of speed, light, the speed of light, gravitational force, thermodynamics. Rupert Sheldrake, in his book Set Science Free, takes the 10 dogmas of science and turns them into questions and just comes up with some very non-surprising but disturbing results, in that none of them hold up. None of the what are considered the fundamentals, like the energy and matter is always cannot be destroyed or created. It's always the same. That's complete BS. That's already been proven. That everything is mechanistic. Everything, the entire model of the universe is a mechanistic materialism that discounts completely the metaphysics and the ethereum and the ether and non-local consciousness and consciousness in and of itself. So the point I wanted to make, and Rupert makes this exceptionally well, is that we have these laws of physics. We have laws of laws of the speed of light, like we just went through, gravitational force, etc. And when you look at them as laws, they are not laws, they are assumptions. There is no scientific proof or definition of the speed of light, aside from the fact that the constants that have been measured have showed it fluctuating over time. And the folks who are responsible for maintaining those records, when asked, how do you explain these fluctuations if they're constants? And they said, there's just anomalous readings or incorrect patterns and so forth. And it's like, okay, all of the different disciplines or the different dogmas that permeate all the different scientific disciplines today are all in complete and serious need of being reworked. They need to be updated at a minimum. They need to be cleaned out at a maximum. And they need to be freshened with the different ideas and concepts that have, especially in the last 20 years, but the stuff that's around the corner is going to blow people's mind. Water, communication, energy, it's all going to become literally in the palm of your hand. And that's going to fundamentally transform everything. So the frequency changes, for example, and the vibrations that are going to be in place for unlimited communication, unlimited water, unlimited energy. The ability for people to have that kind of access is just going to transform humanity. And I think that we are in the end of a 400-year cycle. For those that follow Cliff High, he's pegged it at around 375 or 325, I think. But I think this 400-year cycle that the folks at the top have been riding for the last 400 years, that the whole energy is completely transforming and it's fading out. So the seats that the folks have been riding on of those cycles, of those frequencies and those energies, has fallen out, and they know it. So there's a lot of cornered animal kind of crap going on, and because as the transformation of the energetic cycles, as they cross streams on the decline and on the rise, there's going to be a number of different things that will create opportunities for the cleansing as well as the movement forward. Because if consciousness is always in motion and creating stuff, then that's what's going to happen here. There's going to be this new, and you can see it in different cycles and different metrics: telemetry, astrology, numerology, tarot, I Ching, divination, coffee cup readings. I mean, the psychic connection to the energy fields of this coming cycle is extremely profound. And I think we're seeing the end of the old, the beginning of the new, and it's in that cross section, and it's just kind of messy in there. But I think that it's going to pass sooner than later. At least I'm certainly hoping.
So as the earth is changing or the universe is changing, then we have to change with it to to readapt our universal laws? Or I mean universal laws, like you said, is like man-made, right? So
Well, that's the whole idea, and I didn't finish what Rupert's saying. He said, the whole idea of these things being laws is very anthropocentric. I mean, only men have laws. Cultures have customs. Tribes have customs. So laws they're completely man-made. And what we're seeing is that in all of the sciences, the different disciplines are a whole bunch of new information is starting to show up. And these people are having to deal with it. And they're going, wait a minute, that doesn't fit with the holy grails that we've been holding on to for the last few decades. In fact, it takes us and makes us have to rewrite all that. We don't want to do any of that stuff. Aside from the fact that the real breakthroughs in understanding the nature of reality, the ether. When I was saying that we would have free energy and free water and free communication, that's because that's all in the ether. It's all in the atmosphere around us, and it always has been, because that's the nature of the cosmos and the reality that we inhabit. It's a constant flow of this energy motion that's constantly. That's why we get larger as we go down, as time goes on. But it's a natural part of the way that our existence manifests itself. So if that's the case, if it's that simple, and it doesn't require, a hierarchical belief system, a theology, even a philosophy for that matter. Although the Hermetics, the Kabbalion, the 7 Hermetic principles, I highly recommend, because it's based again on this same kind of concept. Everything is just what it is. Strip all the titles off, strip all of the stories off, strip all the crap off, and just go right to the nut of the nugget and see what the hell that is. And I think the majority of people are going to be in a huge surprise to find out that the stuff that they once thought wasn't and isn't. And something else, and this is what's really going to flip them. The things that their crazy cousins or their black sheep in the family or their nut jobs or their, tinfoil hat folk, they're going to have a whole bunch of correct calls. And people are going to go, not only this is the shit that I was told bullshit, but this crazy shit my cousin has been talking about was true too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a whole bunch of that. And it's going to be very therapeutic in the end run, but it's going to be painful when it happens for a lot of people. Navi? Yeah.
So as all this is changing, do we have to change, or are we just automatically going to change with times along with it? And I mean, we don't necessarily have to do anything ourselves other than pay attention and be aware of it.
So to get the most positive and productive and frictionless experience of reality, you have to kind of see what's going on and figure out how to navigate it, right? Where's the energy? Where's the vibration? How am I resonating with it? What is the resonance with it? And what do I need to do about it? So if your intent is to get the most out of the ride with the least amount of friction as possible, and hope at a minimum, and hopefully a productive and positive, profitable experience at the end of it, then I think a lot of people will go through a gentle nudge or guidance without them really knowing that they're being guided or nudged. I think that's one way that people will make the transition to this new energy. I think some people are going to go kicking and screaming,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and that you can't get away from that. So I think to be in the intention of maximizing the productivity and minimizing the friction as I sail my craft through um, the flow of universe of consciousness, then I'm going to be okay knowing that regardless of what happens, my intent was to get the most out of it and, add as much to it as possible as opposed to subtract. And then that way, um, the only thing that, and this is what I was able to get from exploring all the different Western theologies, was that there's this always a set of rules. There's always this hierarchical component. There is always a lot of strife among the deities and the family and the clan and the group and whatever constitutes the group. There's always a group and there's always strife, conflict. Some bad cats here, some good cats there. These people get tossed out. Those people go kill them, go chase this. I mean, there's this regular consistency. There's a storyline of familial bullshit. Most of it around, siblings and stuff, or even parents and siblings. But the stories are the same. Even in the Mahabharata and the Vedic texts, there's a whole bunch. There's a pantheon of peeps that get pissed off at parenting and sibling and whatever else, and there's just a lot of strife and crap. One day this guy wins, next day that guy wins. This guy takes over that. So that seems to be a habit and nature of, I think, the human manifestation. I think it's a characteristic of the manifestation of our meat suit in the form of the way that biology and the emotions that animate that biology, the way that they function. And so it's kind of like not a prison planet, but like a stage, a theater. You throw them up there and see what they can do, and see what happens. And they all seem to have the same kind of problem. So separation from that as a accepted characteristic of the way that relationships and reality manifests with the human condition of familial and cultural and community constructs. All of that seems to have been given to us as something that a way in which to organize and administer ourselves.
So we already have the tools built into us. It's whether how we use them or add filters or take away filters so we can better navigate this
Yes.
change or these frequencies and vibrations.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I think that the easiest way to experience the reality is to make it as simple as possible. So, well, here's the Hermetic principles from the Kabbalion. So the first one is that it's mentalism, that all is mind. The entire universe is mental, right?
Yep.
Correspondence is the famous as above, so below. There is a reciprocal nature to above and below in its own cycle. Vibration, nothing rests, everything moves and everything vibrates. And this is what, the quantum folks and theorists and mechanics and so forth have finally gotten to the point where there is nothing solid. Everything is a frequency. And this is where I think that the next evolution of what we call physics is going to end up being a frequency-based physics, or what I call frequency physics. So everything vibrates. Everybody's agreed on that. Polarity. There's a pole. You could look at our body as a past pole and our mind as a future pole, right?
Yep.
Rhythm. There's these cycles. They have their own rhythms, and they have rhythms within rhythms. You get polyrhythms. You get all kinds of odd time rhythms, and then those cycles separate and they move into their own direction of motion and creation. But rhythm is all around us, and it happens whether we have a definition and a time signature for it or not. Rhythms in cycles is what we see and study from a statistics perspective. Cause and effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Not quite, but every action does have a reaction. And they're all, the entire function of the way the frequencies unfold and become is that they are always in motion and moving. And they're either resonating with or not with other frequencies and cycles that are already in motion. So there is an action and reaction, but not on the same scale, not on the same metric of reaction, of result. And then the last thing, which really throws a bee in the bonnet of everybody running around trying to figure out what gender they are, is that gender, everything has a masculine and a feminine. That just seems to be a natural characteristic of our existence. There's a masculine and feminine. There's blends of the two, but they are individual expressions of this frequency set. So that, I think, because all those things have no belief system, there's no hierarchy, theology, any of the isms of you can apply this to all of them, but you can't apply any of them to this. So this gives you the fundamentals of, well, that is the place to start, so that you at least start from somewhere, because you got to start from somewhere, right?
Right.
Let's see. That was the scientism. Okay. How we doing on time?
We at an hour and 17 minutes, so we still got quite a bit of time. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there probably should be a part 2 to this, or a part 3 and 4, and
well,
We can go another 30, 40 minutes if you want.
yeah, why don't we do that, and then we can get and get into the second part in another show. The idea in this in Informatica, with the metrics and the matrix, the information that's in there is made up and given some kind of symbology to define it, going back to that UDP I was talking about.
right.
So there is something that defines a set of knowledge, a set of information. And that is what's in, we use language to express. And language, not just in a verbal sense, but symbols and letters, sounds, words, the constructs of those things. Those are all ways in which they are the metrics that we measure in the matrix, the information nugget that we just came across.
So building blocks.
Yeah, definitely building blocks from this, even especially if you want to get into, conveying some important meaning or some responsibility, something that is really important. But at a minimum, we have this association with these symbols and letters and sounds that get put into constructs called words, which are then assembled into with other words to come up with and convey some idea, some meaning. That's how we learn. The language, the symbols, the words that are in the language that we use, they determine how our mind operates. Not how it functions, but how it operates. Two different things. What I was saying earlier about, and we'll get to that actually after this one, it's about how the mind works. But in order for the mind to work, it has to have symbols, letters, sounds, words, so that it has some reference to the experiences that it's having. So the language is the operating system of the mind. And once you understand that, then you can start examining the language that's in your operating system, because you're most likely going to find stuff that you want to change for whatever reason. So once you understand that, then you can go, I think I can now start looking at how does this mind, what's the process of this mind? What do we got here? There we go. Okay. So language is the operating system of the mind, and the mind is the mind. It is not the brain. So once you have a fundamental perspective of the separation of the etherium and the materium, meaning your mind and versus your brain, then you realize that you have that all the time. Everybody has that all the time. We think most of our experience seems to be in what we call, our head or in our brain. But in reality, that is all happening outside, and that interface between the frequencies of the mind with the frequencies of the body, that interface is where all that shit happens. And then it becomes a lot easier to explain a whole bunch of things, like the brain is not the mind, it's the nervous system organ for the meat suit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what it is, just like the heart is for the blood. The brain that's all it does. We have the sensation of experience and stuff happening up there, but that's only because it's the closest connection to that frequency set in the etherium. It's right there. Like, okay. So the mind is the unique expression of consciousness. We are a frequency stamp, an individual, unique signature from the consciousness, which makes the cosmos. Consciousness was whatever that is. So the mind is that unique expression. It's the etheric energy expressed in the brain. So when that connection happens and the interface gets lit up, frequencies coming down from the mind are going to come in and do their thing, particularly if, how well you've attenuated them and are able to manage them. So the key is that the mind and the brain are two different things. They both function and are from the same energetic source. One is in the frequency realm of consciousness. The other is in the frequency realm of the materium. So boom, there you go. Now you have the interaction in the experience that we have. All the little nuances, all the different aspects, all the different experiences that you'll have both in the etherium and the materium are subject to your own experience and intent and what you choose to chase. And then there's the others that are just going to happen whether you know it or not, because that's a part of being a part of the entire consciousness. It is, and it just unfolds. And we're either, as the Taoists say, going with the flow, going into the river. You work with the river, not against it. So that goes back to your question earlier, Gerald, about the whole idea of creating something new, creating novelty, new art, new something. Every thought that you have is a creation moment.
Okay.
If people realize that they are in constant creation mode, because that's the nature of consciousness, that is who we uniquely are. So we have the same nature and habit and characteristic of the source that we are stamped from. So thinking is creation. And then you get to, these different philosophies and belief systems, the famous one of thoughts become things. It's like, well, yeah, because thoughts are creation. The act of thought is creating something. It's creating a thought. And then what you decide to do with that thought is going to determine what's going to happen next. Because we're always in a state, and I'll go ahead and put this out there.
Yeah.
We're always in a state of next. There is no now. The Eckhart Tolle and I think Alan Watts even talks about this, the idea of, you must be present, be in the now. Well, the now is never the same, because the now is always the next. Because we are constantly going from where we were to the next thing.
Right.
So, and it just makes sense if consciousness is in a constant state of motion, creating things, then that's the next. We're always in the next. We're never in the now. Because the now is gone as soon as the next just shows up.
Yeah, if you take it in man-made, say time, seconds or whatever, minutes, every time we think about a minute, we're already past that. By the time we're gone.
And that's one of the things that as I was getting the downloads and I was starting to try to map this to other information that I had been gathering about all this nature of stuff. I started to see these patterns, as I was saying at the beginning. Here's some patterns. The characteristics of consciousness is a pattern. The expression of energy in frequencies are patterns. They tend to have a habit of a proclivity towards manifesting things in a certain way. This whole everything we see in the cosmos, the galaxy, our solar system, our atmosphere, for that matter, all of that are things that we all experience and have a common relationship with, a common experience with. A lot of variation, but for the most part, there's that band. Everybody kind of sees and experiences the same thing. And this is acute when we have the wars and the things like we've got going on now, where it's like, okay, well, that's how that's going to be there. So the patterns, once I felt like I was comfortable with the patterns of consciousness and energy and manifestation through the etherium and the materium, then I thought, well, how do we process that information? How is that information used? Well, how do we react to information? So I said, well, let's look at how the mind processes things, how we seem to do what we do. I said earlier that the language is the operating system of the mind, right? So now let's see how that mind works. How does the operating system process that language, right? And then how does that work? So the first thing that seems to be fundamental is that we are pattern recognition based. Analogies, metaphors, mapping. When we have an experience, there's an information set, a monad, as Leibniz called them, self-organizing consciousness. You have this information set that is new. And you go, well, what else have I got that's like that? Oh, it kind of maps us over here. And it's also kind of relationship to this. It's nothing to do with that. That's how we learn. Just at the fundamental level, whether we're thinking about it or not, it's a mental process. Then we have preferences and biases and prejudices and the resonances of things that we resonate with. And this is one of the first places that the hack into the operating system to put in a virus has occurred. And that is the negative characteristic blanket that's been thrown over our preferences and biases and the words in there and so forth. We're told you can't be biased. It's like, you can't say that. That's how we work. That's how minds we have biases. That's what a preference is. That's what a prejudice is. A peccadillo is. That's natural, and it's because of the resonances that we experience. That's what we have attraction to or preferences for, etc. So that's been hijacked, and people are not doing well because of the effective job they've done screwing with what does somebody they get fired up about? What is their curiosity, their imagination? What makes them go and pursue and have an intention to acquire or to achieve? That's an innate nature of our consciousness and the way that it functions. What you do with it it's got its pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, at the root experience, that's what we do. We see patterns that we recognize as things that we like, and they become preferences and biases. And then what happens is we start to see the pulse and the rhythm and the vibration of this pattern recognition. That's now have all these preferences that have been added to them. Now there's a rhythm and a cycle and a vibration and a pulse. And then what happens? Well, we're always in this predictive mode. We're looking at whatever it is that we're doing, and we're immediately thinking what we're going to do next with that information. And it can be extremely intense with a lot of information coming from a whole bunch of sources, or it can be very, very limited and not going to provide the best possible outcome because all the information is not being considered, which is just simple. The more information you have, the better choices in it and decisions you make. So how do you manage that information? Well, when we think, we've gone through these patterns and these preferences and these pulses, and now we're applying all that to the experience we're having. And we're trying to figure out, how do we define this? How does this fit? What am I going to, what do I think about it? How does it fit with the stuff I've got? Does it feel disruptive? Does it feel harmonious? Does it feel additive or subtractive? I mean, what is it that happens with that information? That's the other place where there's been a bunch of exceptionally well executed mental viruses, is the idea of possibilities and potentialities and probabilities. That narrative has been jacked to the point of focusing the attention on something that really isn't, but it has an extremely high emotive value that's been cranked up and added to and modified and painted over whatever else has been done. They've done a real good job of taking all these potentials and possibilities and probabilities and twisting them all up into apocalyptic bullshit. Not that some of it may not happen, or not that they have a chance, but it's clear that at least the intent is to stir up as much of that as possible. So we're seeing enough of the insertion and injection of insidious nonsense into everything that it's caused a lot of mental, at a minimum, consternation, it clogged with crap. People are having a very hard time navigating the tsunami of the bullshit because it's nonstop. So the best way that I find to navigate it is to just always weed it down to the most basic component, and then make its work. You have to do your own stuff because you're responsible for your own interaction with it. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's a lot of extra work, but it is definitely necessary, because the other side of getting through the slog is going to be worth it, as I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think we muddy our own streams, or is there some higher creation or something that muddies it for us?
Well, there's a fair amount of both. I need to change this. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem. You've got a fair amount of well-intended individuals that are trying to herd and group the energy in a different direction. But the ones that are trying to herd it into the shitty direction where it's been, they still have a hold of the stick. And I think we're seeing the first vestiges of that falling apart, because it's, as I've said before on B's show, I mean, the amount of incompetence that's being executed with all of this is it's at a level where you're trying to figure out, are you aware that you're doing it this badly, or are you doing it on purpose?
Right.
What's the reason behind abject incompetence and BS? It doesn't make any sense if you think that if your plan is to be successful. So I think that the energies and the frequencies and the vibrations that we're seeing right now are they're being kicked up a level from what we're used to, and we're only at the beginning of that. So being aware that the energies are in a super transitional flux is the most important thing that you can do to safely navigate it, because the amount of consternation that has been thrown out there on purpose with some of the narratives that you go, what? It's like we were saying earlier about questions. You know, the answers that are being given for a lot of the chaotic crap that's going on. My first thing is, well, how'd you get that answer? Show me the question you used to get there, because I can't think of a question that would give me that answer. All right.
It wasn't a part of the multiple choice.
It's kind of stuff that makes you go, I'm not sure if these people are doing it from a I think there's definitely intention. It's intentional for sure. But
Right.
the being so blatantly obvious about it is a new level of what for me.
So these streams or these vibrations of frequencies, they're pure before they get to us, right? Because they're not clouded or muddy before they get to us.
Well, I would say that they're always pure.
Mhm.
What muddies them is the filters and the dials that we tweak them to.
So as this new change or this change is coming about, do you think that the veil not only is thinning, but it's just going to be completely wiped out? We're just going to have a full stream of knowledge. It's going to be just crystal clear to everybody.
I think as a whole, yes. I mean the there's two things going on that are kind of diametrically opposed in my opinion, but also bumping into each other. So one of them is the energies that the frequencies themselves, and they're just coming regardless. You can't, you either go with that flow and get in it and take advantage of it, or you get taken out by it. And there's going to be a lot of people that unfortunately will be taken out, but then it's just not everybody's time. And we have to understand that. So there's that natural set of frequencies and cycles that are coming in. The other is the pushback from those that don't want that cycle. So there's
Right.
a natural clash and chaos when they converge. And I think we're seeing, little tentacles of that getting tapped in and out. And, we're seeing expressions of it flare up here and manifest there. And, but I think that at a whole, or as a whole, that the transformation is there to be had. And as I said earlier, some are going to get gently nudged. Others are just going to get drug into it. Others are just going to become aware of it and just be a part of it. So we'll see different manifestations of that, but the ones,
there's no stopping it. Once it's in motion, it's it's going to be here, and whether you're kicking and screaming or go along with it.
Yeah, and that is choice, and it goes back to the question about free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like you have to have, if consciousness, which creates the universe, is always in motion and always creating, and it's always in search of novelty, that sounds like it's making a intended choice to move. It's making an intention to go do something. That seems to be a conscious intent as we understand it. And oh boy, do we have the same experience. That's how we go set about doing whatever it is we're doing. And that intent is always in the next, not in the now. You're always intending to be aware of the next thing that is happening after now, which is next.
Right. But then it won't be now.
Catch-22?
Say that again.
Is that like a catch-22?
It's or one of those infinite loops. I'm not sure. When it cycles on itself. So I'm very I'm very optimistic, and a lot of that has to do with what we're going to see is an emergence and evolution of technology, and that technology is going to be both scary but profound, and it's going to be a matter of who makes it and who runs it that's going to determine how safe and adopted it is. But at a minimum, something like it is going to happen. There's just nothing that in the current infrastructure and systems and models and governance and administration and all the regulation and all these things, all of those systems are broke. They are not fixable. They need to be replaced. There needs to be new models of the way that people conduct the exchange of value. because commerce is the big word. Everybody says, well, it's about the economy and the commerce that happens in the economy. Well, taking the first principles approach and then going to the nut of the nugget, what is commerce? It is the exchange of value. And it's how that value is defined and exchanged is what enables commerce. Just fundamental. Whether it's dollars or precious metals or digital assets, doesn't matter. It's all the system in which enables that interaction. This whole blockchain, or what they call distributed ledger technology, is going to fundamentally change everything.
Right.
It is a brilliant design that is the reason that the cryptos even exist. So I call it tokenization. In fact, I have a project that I've been working on to take this blockchain architecture as well as what I call assisted intelligence, not this artificial stuff, because it has nothing artificial about intelligence in what we are being given as AI. It's really assisted search engine,
Right.
because that's all it really does. So I've got a site where I've been building this whole business model of, I call it sysx tech at tek.com, SYSX, and then tek.com. And you can see what this business model of the future looks like. So because I'm involved in it, I've been in tech for over 40 years, and I see this stuff, I go, ooh, this is going to be exciting. This Geezer Geek's going to have fun. So I'm also very positive and optimistic about the future because of what the technology component that's going to be a part of this new future. Our education, the way that we learn things, for example, the whole academic institutions and all that, and books and classes and all of that is going to completely change in the next 5 years. There's going to be individual instructors that will have online courses that are going to be from the top whoever, and there will be new organized committees or communities of education systems that will have a community defined certification, a community defined support, because people will go to it because of its quality. And it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. YouTube right now, all you got to do is go scroll through a home feed or a subscription feed and see what's out there. It's unbelievable. There's more amazing stuff out there than has ever been. It is the single library of knowledge right now. And it's only going to get bigger. Forget about the ideological issues of the service. They've got it down. They own the content. It's everywhere. And it's very much it's at the beginning. So we're going to see this education model also be affected by the crypto model, which is going to be integrated with these blockchain certification systems that is going to completely change the paradigm of education. We've already got examples of it, again, on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of channels, Khan Academy, some of the musicians, Graham Hancock. There's an amazing amount of content that you're not going to get in any academic institution. It's not a part of the curriculum. You're going to get the siloed snapshot of whatever that knowledge stack is when they put it on paper. All that stuff is going to change. The effect that the blockchain and crypto model will have on education will ripple through all the other institutions. There will be a realization that institutionally people can become and voluntarily join self-organizing collectives of like-minded interest and pursuits. Within those self-organizing collectives, there will be agreements within which one would become a part of and participate that group. And all of those are all open source. And everybody sees exactly what the terms and conditions are, exactly what the rules of engagement are, and exactly what the rules of excommunicado are. So it will all be it'll force the openness of it and the security of it will force a realignment of the way that people think about trusted interaction and value. So on the blockchain conversation,
So it's all going to be certified and verified each step of the way, and then the chain is going to be like a read only, where they can't go back and manipulate the past data.
that's one of the beauties of this hash graph model, or this blockchain model, is you can't go back. You can't go change anything. So the simplest way to explain it is going back to the concept of value for a second, and how that is the fundamental aspect of commerce. Value is something that's agreed to between two parties that are trying to exchange something, right? At the fundamental level, you got something and they've got money, and you're going to agree on what that value delineation is, what that little metrics in the matrix is for that value. You agree and you exchange it. Well, the easiest way to explain blockchain is that if you go back to before there was currency, and whether they were precious metals or um, any type of coinage or currency, we used to barter. In fact, we still barter. But, the simplest value exchange is I got chickens and you got pigs. We agree on a quantity and it's done. And our value exchange is conducted. Our commerce is done. Right.
Yep.
Well, that's what the blockchain offers from the digital aspect of being able to use it as a means of exchange. It gives that security and that that onceness of once it's done, it's recorded, and it'll never change. So it provides a level of trust that you don't have with any kind of currencies now. It provides a level of transparency because the record is there. Everybody has access to it. You don't get all the details, but that record, that key, is validated as a valid set of information. So there's transparency, there's trust, and the only thing is if the system is up or taken out by an EMP or an asteroid or something.
So this is going to be able to be implemented in every facet of our life then?
I think so. It certainly has the potential, and it's something that is it's needed. As I was saying earlier, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that everything that we are seeing and depending on and using right now is broken.
Yeah.
And it needs to be replaced. It's not something that can be fixed, in my opinion.
Well, I think this would be a good stopping point, unless you have one final thought before we or you think we had a pretty good conclusion to this subject for right now.
Well, I think it's it's a good spot. I think we'll end with, I'll show you these 3 slides.
Okay.
And this gives the overview of what we just talked about. Oh, I forgot to do the present thing. All right. So the idea of Informatica is that consciousness is everything, and all the information that we experience in our consciousness is Informatica. It becomes Informatica as it manifests, and it therefore then is the Informatica as it becomes. So the consciousness has a characteristic in nature and habit of energy that's always in motion, and it's always seems to be creating something in the search of what appears to be novelty. As that energy unfolds, it's representative or represented by frequencies. Everything that we see and experience, from the ethereum to the materium, is these energy frequencies. And that's where the ethereum and materium come from. So the ethereum and materium is manifest in what we see as our universe, as our cosmos. It is everything that we seem to experience outside of our own meat suits is in this thing called the universe, which has a bunch of bright lights a long way away. In that universe, there is life that apparently unfolds. And we've seen that there appears to be this carbon orientation, which is us. And there seems to be a silica orientation, which is another type of life that seems to be in existence. And then there's other, which is a whole bunch of speculations. Well, from that life, where there seems to be this humanoid expression. And this humanoid expression is, it comes in the carbon iteration of life, there's this habit and proclivity for this humanoid form, whether you see the definitions of reptilians or, the star people. There seems to be, at a minimum, a trunk and limbs and a head construct. So it seems like the universe in this carbon life expression seems to favor that construct. Okay. Well, in that construct, this humanoid expression has used these things and come up with these things called theologies and philosophies and sciences to explain everything that just happened. So we have a whole bunch of speculation, a whole bunch of interesting ideas and histories and data, but it's all trying to explain all this stuff that started. How did this where's this consciousness thing? Well, nobody knows, but there's a whole bunch of speculation.
Yeah. A lot of questions.
So that's that is the summary. Of what we've talked about. Now I've got a whole bunch of, we didn't get into the vibrations and frequencies specifically, and I've got a whole nother section on those that we can get into on another time. But I hope I haven't blathered on too much and put too many of you to sleep.
No, I thought
very
this was very, very informative. And I mean, I kind of already think that way, or without having your terms. I mean, I think the same way, but you're putting your terms to what I've already came up with, or I think I'm processing it the right way.
That's awesome. It's very gratifying for me because, I mean, I can listen to my stuff and just go, I don't know about that, Bauer. You need to go back and have another look-see on that one. But it's fun to be able to have conversations on subjects like this, because there's not enough. I think there's too much of the filtered and purposely infected crap that's going on in the craniums of most people. People are I think they're going to be struggling trying to find a way to explain what they're experiencing and to navigate it. And this is kind of my offer for those conditions, is like, here's a way to think about it that might help get you through it in a way that you won't be as painful and hopefully more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just totally enjoyed this tonight, and
Yeah.
everybody out in chat or anybody that watches this in the future, just watch it several times and just keep going over it, and it'll start making sense and just start falling in line. And that's another way to keep yourself open to the change coming up.
Yeah.
Is you gotta keep your mind open, be receptive.
And we need a part 2.
Absolutely. There's a whole bunch more. Like I said, we can get into the vibrations and frequencies, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and flap my yap and see if any of this stuff sticks anywhere. And I appreciate the feedback. So thank you.
Well, we just enjoyed having you, and go ahead as we close out. Go ahead and give your website and stuff again, and then we'll just say bye to everybody and call it an evening.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for everybody for watching, everybody in the chat, and anything that I do is on my website at robertbower.com. That's Robert, BOWER.com. My music, voiceover, Informatica. I try to keep everything there because at least it's one place to go to find it. Yeah, I've got YouTube and Facebook and all this other stuff. It's like, I'm just going to go to my site. And it's a lot easier to find me and my stuff. But I'm really looking forward to furthering this conversation. I think we'll have a lot.
Definitely.
Yes, it's been great. I can't wait to have you back, and we'll do 3 or 4 if we have to get through this and see how far we can go.
Well, there's a whole lot there, and it's the more you dig into it, the more you find, which is kind of like this self-feeding curiosity. It's like I've always said that I'm an autodidact semiotician with an insatiable curiosity and an overly fertilized field of imagination. And I find myself wandering in that field all the time. So it's fun to share some of the wanders.
Well, I hope I didn't throw your thing off the rail, because I was trying to make sense to it to me and communicate the best I could. And even though I didn't exactly use your terms, I was trying to. I think I was in the same ballpark anyway.
You nailed it, and that was one of the things. I kind of stopped me for a second. I went, "Holy shit! Does he get this?" I think somebody else gets this besides me.
Maybe I had it download right as we were going or something. I don't know. It just seemed to make sense. So I don't know. Now, whether I could reiterate whatever you said, I don't know if I could, but while we were talking about it, I grasped it.
Well, it was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. And let's schedule another one, and we'll go and get our toes in it and kick the water around a little.
All right.
Sounds cool. So don't go anywhere. Stay put, and we'll just end the show.
All right. Thanks.
Well, thanks everybody that joined us tonight, and I hope you loved this show as much as I did and Jane did.
Yep.
And be sure to check out part 2 for the professor to come back and enlighten us on some more. And don't forget, we have more shows coming up on every Sunday at 6 p.m. and we will be back on the Night Owl Lounge. So look for the late night or the early morning, whichever way you see it, at like 11 or 12 o'clock a.m. So we will catch you all next time, and love and peace to all of you. We just love you so much in chat. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Love you.
Bye.
Keep looking up and raise your vibrations.